I think the conversation globally about this is typically men are so privileged. Men don't see us. And the question I have for everyone is, how much are you speaking up about your experience?
Welcome to the Be Well Baby podcast. I'm Dr. Emily Spaeth, founder of Be Well Baby in Portland, Oregon, and the Beyond Birth Blueprint, an online community where we support families through pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and especially life with a baby. This podcast exists because I believe families deserve better than what I am seeing in my work as a physical therapist, lactation consultant, and childbirth educator. Just a quick loving note before we dive in. Everything you hear on this podcast is for educational purposes only. It's not medical advice. Every body and every baby and every season is different, and you deserve support that is personalized to you. Let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. My guest today is Stassi Chaillé. She's a feminist therapist trained at Columbia University in systematic oppression and the ways that systems contribute to mental health across all identities. Her current work focuses specifically on women's mental health, our energy, our quality of life, and this is the part that really perked my ears. She has coined a term. How many people can say they've coined a term? She's coined a term called system keeping. And I promise you, by the end of this conversation, you are going to see your life completely differently. I don't know about all of you, but I am living in the chaos of Maycember right now. It's a term all the parents are using because we have graduations and award ceremonies. The kids are going crazy just like it's the holidays because it's right before the end of school. Just in this episode, I'm telling you about 3 events in May. In my little life, I'm gearing up for Birth Prep But Better on May 30th and a choir performance on May 31st with A Notion to Scream. Please come if you like activism and music. There will be an orchestra and a children's choir. That's besides the point. If just the concept of system keeping perks your ears like it did for me and makes you a little bit interested, check out Stassi's masterclass. She is giving a masterclass in 8 days on May 28th. And if you are at all interested, you should check it out. We've got links in the show notes, and I can't wait for you to hear the show. We get into the details of what this concept means. We talk about how system keeping intensifies during pregnancy and early postpartum, especially, how it shows up in your body, and what one realistic first shift looks like when you're ready to stop carrying all of the systems. This conversation is for every birthing body who falls into bed exhausted but can't sleep because their brains will not turn off. Let's get into it. Stassi Chaillé, welcome to the Be Well Baby podcast.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. Stassi, what are you seeing right now with women and exhaustion that feels different or even maybe deeper than just being busy? Because I know we are all busy. I'm too busy. I say yes to too many things. I have 3 kids. I have a business. Being busy is one thing, but there's just this different level of exhaustion.
Yeah, I think it's really important to note that it's not the busyness that's making people tired. It's the mental load and the act of anticipating the systems up front. As we're recording right now, Christmas is next week. It's Hanukkah right now. And that it's the bone tired exhaustion that makes you fall into bed, but not let you sleep because you are tracking and anticipating what needs to happen next, who you didn't respond to, what needs to be organized. And that's happening, especially in motherhood. And we can then zoom out just to women. But in motherhood, that's happening with our 3 children and then extended families and then our businesses or jobs and then our relationships. And then oftentimes that extends into community, and that looks like churches, choirs, which I know you participate in, and school volunteering. And that labor, which is physical, you have to be somewhere for those things, add to your exhaustion. And the other side is that it fuels community, right? And so there's these 2 parts, but the piece that is the most bone-chilling, exhausting is the act of anticipating so that everyone else's lives and all the systems continue to run smoothly.
So you're kind of talking around it, but I know that you have coined a term called system keeping.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love for you to explain what system keeping is and why we should care about it.
So yeah, system keeping came out of my 10-year clinical practice and then research on top of that, understanding women's lives. So first it just started as pattern recognition where women were coming in to see me and it was all the same thing. And I just went, what is happening here? And so it first started with exhaustion, dissatisfaction in their partnerships or marriage, and then usually a chronic illness on top of that. And so that looked like migraines, PCOS, irritable bowel syndrome, and then debilitating anxiety and other like autoimmune disorders. And the debilitating anxiety one was always very masked in hypervigilance and control that looked like type A, that you could just kind of go totally chill, no big deal. And I started just tracking that. And then also over the course of time started seeing myself mirrored in these clients that I wasn't particularly ready for or prepared for, going, wait a second, I think like that. Oh shoot, I do too much. And starting to recognize where they might have gone too far or gone past the point of functioning well. And I started wondering, and, you know, within my clinical practice and you'd take continuing ed where you'd go, you know, long-term effects of anxiety in your body with adrenaline and cortisol running into your body. How does the body keep score? Where does that show up in your body? And so I was tracking all of those pieces. And one day I had a client come in, who had been to doctors for years, seen different specialists. And one day somebody said, hey, we really don't think it's physical. You have physical symptoms, but go see a therapist. And she came to me. And ultimately, with the work of her primary care and other specialists, and myself included, she was diagnosed with something that couldn't be reversed based off of her rigidity and how much she was functioning and the expectation of herself to keep it done perfectly, right? And that we as Americans, and our American value is treating the body as vessels of productivity, not things to care for that we live in. And so women are trained on that really, really early. So what I ended up doing is collecting all of this data, doing additional research on that, and coined the term system keeping, similar to housekeeping, but that it is women holding up entire systems. I don't think mental load, emotional labor, these are all becoming very normal. Burnout are normal common words, but they're not touching on what's actually happening, which is that it's the act of anticipating needs for any given system to make sure that they run smoothly. And that starts at home, at work, in relationships, all of them, including your partnerships.
Let me ask you this. How do you think that system keeping intensifies during pregnancy and early parenthood?
Oh, goodness. It's invisible, right? And so that's the thing is we see baby growing and I'd love your perspective on that in terms of just the physical piece of that. We, again, as Americans really just go like, go do your thing, keep it kind of private. Like, and you and I are very much in the amplification of like, get these voices out there, find each other because this is hard, but that it isn't normalized to talk about. It isn't normalized to talk about your fear, that you're waiting for the ultrasound to make sure the heartbeat's still there, right? Like you're holding all of that and you have to be pretty quiet about it. And even if you have a partner listening, they can't deeply connect to that to like relieve it. And so what happens within pregnancy is a lot of isolation and mental preparation. So you're trying to figure out what's going on with your body. So you're researching, you're reading books, you're trying to figure out how to prepare for birth. You're doing all this like big intellectualizing of what's happening to you and then organizing your home. I, ran a Be Well Baby group yesterday and I think it was yesterday. Yes, it was. Lots have happened since then. And somebody was talking about being 34 weeks pregnant and needing to get the garage organized. That was a value that her husband had before baby came, right? And so, yes, husband took that on, but that like there is like a mental load of anticipating what will it look like to have a baby in our home and then organizing that, planning that, creating registries, right? Like there's all sorts of just invisible labor that you have to like research those things to get to that, right? There's like so much there and that's just pregnancy. And then a baby.
And you're also like, you're biologically wired in your brain to do all of those things. And because it's all happening inside you and it's really hard for your partner to connect to it. We have an episode 2 with Barb Buckner Suarez, where we talk about how it is just theoretical. This baby is a theory until it's on the outside for the partner. And for the birthing person, it is so visceral. It's everything.
Yes.
And, you know, the appointments, the research on how you'd like to birth your baby, all of that aside, there's this incredible preparation that your brain is doing to shift your identity.
Yeah. And that's labor, you know, and I think like, yes, we're hardwired for it, but what our culture doesn't provide for us and what it normalizes inside your home is like, we don't need to pay attention to that. You're going to do it. You're hardwired for it. And up until 1960s, women weren't allowed in the workforce, right? That wasn't happening. And so, or at least not happening as a common norm. And so now what's happening is this masculine energy showing up in the workforce going, I'm not going to stop. You're not going to like show me that I have any less power here. And of course you don't, but your brain and body are doing something. And to normalize that your brain is actually like a powerhouse employee versus like, I actually need to slow down here and come here. What we're doing is compounding and compounding and compounding labor, adrenaline, rushing that isn't harming a baby, but it is absolutely taxing your body and your exhaustion. And then it turns into baby coming. And what's different about that, and you know, we have to zoom out and look at like the cultural norms within our society about like registries, right? Like that didn't happen when we were cavemen. Like that wasn't a thing that's happening. And so you always have to add the layer of what are we holding that is different from the original spaces that our bodies were hardwired for. And so what I like to say is that we are modern women with caveman technology. And that we don't create those two things together, right? We often go, cool, that technology is fine, and I'm still going to be a modern woman. And it does tax our bodies because we haven't evolved from that. It hasn't changed at all in that time, and we're moving at a rapid pace.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier the body keeps the score. So how do you see in your practice system keeping showing up in women's bodies?
All I have is the patterns of it, and then I can point to research going, Gabor Mate speaks to 80% of autoimmune disorders are women. And for him, the theory is that it is the suppression of emotion that is creating that happening in the body, where the body shuts down because it can't hold it. And I think that's really important to know. And so there are researchers doing that work. I'm collecting it and watching the suffering happening, going, okay, how do we liberate this and move through this? Because women shouldn't be holding it. So for me, it's the patterns. It's chronic illness, typically. If it's not, it looks like debilitating anxiety that will lead eventually to typically chronic illness in that. It's rigidity in expectations that my house has to be clean because our nervous system, and so if I can like just zoom out to that, it's always nervous system work. And so that we are stuck in a pattern of, and system keeping, if you get listeners can picture a triangle. At the top, there's conditioning. We learn as women early what our roles are. At the bottom one corner is invisible contracts where we get signed up for things without consenting to them. So what do moms do? What are we better naturally fit for? We plan better, we anticipate better, but that was a conditioned thing. And so, you know, that often it happens very early, right? I was a kid in second grade who stayed inside for recess and like cleaned the whiteboard and took off the like chalk out of the whatever those are, erasers, right? There we go. And so it starts really early, but it compounds when you add marriage, right? And all of a sudden your wives do certain things, husbands don't. And we do question a lot. Generations question and challenge things, but we keep more than we question typically, right? So it doesn't move as rapidly as our society is asking of women. And then the last one is nervous system, right? So if you go to that bottom triangle, it's nervous system loop where we are very worried about negative feedback. We were trained for goodness, not agency. So if we step out of line, we will get, and it's true, it's violent and it's not physically violent, but people will question us. They'll wonder about what's happening. We're not being good women. And so the main thing that we have to work on is nervous system. Knowing you have to be aware that you are sitting in the conditioning that's happening for you. Like none of this is actually real. It's a little bit made up and we're just abiding by rules. And then you have to notice how your body's responding to it, which is typically what it's showing up as in the body. If we can go outside of chronic illness, it's just anxiety going, I don't want to get in trouble. It can also show up as like a family member of mine and it shows up as like intensity and not rage, but just like her body and her nervous system goes, you can't make me, and so it reacts differently, but typically it's an anxiety of like fear of getting in trouble. And even that intensity is that, right? It's protection from that. And so the work is hearing it in your body and going, oh, you don't feel safe for like resting. You don't feel safe for dropping the ball because everything's going to collapse, and it will. That's the reality is women are holding it, and if you're not paying attention to it, things could fall apart pretty quickly. And that's a real fear. So our bodies get hardwired into it, and this is why it's so hard to step off. You can know about emotional labor, but if anyone's listening has heard that word before at this point, and you're still doing it, you're just now mad that you're doing it because our bodies are deeply connected to the system.
Yeah. And this really resonates because what we see so much in our practice is in pregnancy, throughout postpartum, in beyond birth, it's generally the moms. Yeah. Partners are invited, but it is generally the pregnant person who is spending all of the time doing the research, taking the classes, and then postpartum, they're not only having to learn how to feed their baby, recover, move their body in a way that feels good again, maybe, feed themselves, feed the whole house, It's so much. And I think especially in pregnancy and early postpartum, you are just constantly ignoring your nervous system.
Yeah.
Let's talk about for a little bit. I mean, and don't even get me started on having toddlers and kids because the amount of just fry on your nervous system is so huge when you're just being bombarded all the time with stuff and when you're the primary caregiver.
Yeah.
Let's talk really quickly. I know that my listeners are all like hyper intelligent, educated people. But let's talk about the nervous system. Just baseline. What are we talking about when we're talking about your nervous system?
It's such we hear it and when it's thrown around a lot and you're like, what are we talking about, right? And so if any listeners here can just take their hands and tap their chest, just go back and forth, tap, 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 and start feeling that tingling. What we're talking about is intuition. We're talking about the cues in your body that are telling you what feels good and what doesn't. Now, where we stopped in the triangle is when you stack those three, conditioning, invisible contracts, and nervous system loop, in the middle of that triangle is self-abandonment. When all of these stack together and they work quietly and simultaneously without any of us notice, self-abandonment happens. And so women have been trained to avoid hearing their bodies or listening to their own intuition. We gaslight ourselves. We worry that we're martyrs. We worry that we're being demanding. Maybe I am too much or I'm asking too much. And so to listen to your nervous system, to hear it, is also inherently dangerous, right? We've been trained to make sure not to trust ourselves in the process. And what we've done is intellectually know stuff and severed the communication to feeling. And so it takes slowness to feel that nervous system, right? And so typically, and I'm one of them, I'm included in this, the women who are listening here are often going to be rushing women. And when I first heard that term coined by Dr. Libby Weaver, I went, oh, that's me. I know exactly who that is. And it's absolutely Emily. I don't need to read the book. Got it. I know a label now.
That is so true.
So true. And that's us actually listening to our nervous system, but rushing through stuff because we don't think we have enough time. We can't hold it all and da 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 da. And so we are slowing down to create safety. We are actually telling our nervous system there's a tiger in the room at all times, and we have to make sure we're running away from it. And so, so it's just this feedback loop that we can't get out of.
Absolutely. Most birth education classes teach you what to expect for birth. This one was designed by someone who sees what actually happens on the other side of birth, in your pelvic floor, in your house, on your living room floor, in the early days when theory meets reality. Birth Prep But Better is happening on May 30th, and I really want you to come. It's essentially everything in Beyond Birth that's designed to be a 2-year commitment, but some people don't have 2 years to hang out with me. So if you want to spend a morning with me in Lake Oswego. I'm going to be doing this live at New Mom School on May 30th. And I am giving you little bite-sized morsels of delicious information. I'm giving you all the things that I wish people had known before they gave birth. So come ready to ask questions that nobody else is answering. I'm going to back up even further and talk, our nervous system is meant to go fast and slow. There's the sympathetic nervous system, which is what we're sort of talking about in that heightened state. Sympathetic nervous system makes your heart rate faster. It brings blood to your muscles and away from your digestion. It actually does this fun thing where it can make you just excrete everything in your body because you need to run away from the tiger. You don't have time to pee, so just pee now and then run from the tiger. It
also makes the tiger think you're really gross, right? It's like it's a survival mechanism to go, that's too stinky, right? It's a skunk experience too, right? There's like two versions of that.
Then your parasympathetic nervous system is that rest and digest. That is where your heart rate slows down, you're warm, things feel easy. And what's interesting is that a lot of us have digestive issues, are, having all of these different symptoms that are being treated medically in one way or another, when maybe it's just that our nervous system isn't allowing the parasympathetic nervous system cannot turn on.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know that there's so much hype about the vagus nerve, so I feel like we have to talk about what that is.
Yes, I agree.
And why people are talking about it. But essentially, it's one of your cranial nerves, and it goes all the way through your body, vagus meaning like the wanderer. And it is responsible for a lot of the rest and digest in your body, but not all of it. It's not just about cranial nerve 10. It's all your cranial nerves and all of your sacral nerves that we're talking about when we talk about the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's a brief overview, but let's kind of zoom back in here to system keeping. And I was furiously taking notes because I feel like you know this so well, Stassi, that it's just like it rolls off the tongue. And I'm like, wait, what was the first
I know, I'm
part
like, let me just throw. I will talk for 40 minutes. I just did an hour-long talk on system keeping yesterday. I'm like, you have to take pauses so Emily can ask some questions.
So the top of the triangle is conditioning.
Yeah.
And that means that I grew up being the people pleaser.
Yep.
I'm so good at doing what I'm told. I can anticipate people's needs because I know that that's what I'm supposed to do. The second point of the triangle is the invisible contracts, which are, this is the role that I am now in, and therefore this is what I do. Now, I want to highlight this for a second because I feel like I'm really bad at some of those things that I'm supposed to be really good at per the contract.
Yes, absolutely. And do you feel guilt or shame about that sometimes?
Oh, sometimes.
Yeah, I've had to actively go, I have abided by the rule and love it. I still want it so badly. And you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, that my worth goes higher the more tidy and organized my house is, right? And when you become a wife, that's a part of the role. And just anyone hearing that rolling their eyes, yes, that's true. None of us want to agree to that. And quietly, we have been conditioned to see it that way, whether that's from the show, That 70s Show, any TV show you've ever seen, any song or media magazine, right? I follow Joanna Gaines and Meghan Markle, and that's the brand, and so even if you consciously disagree, we are still getting all the feedback that is our role. And so I can tell you exactly where the clutter is in my house right now. I promise you, if I asked my husband, he would not know and not care. I know where the cobwebs are.
That's where I feel like I'm not good at it because my husband is the one who knows where the clutter is. And I have no clue. I don't care. But I do care.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm supposed to care.
Yep.
But my brain doesn't really work very well in in terms of clutter. I don't want there to be clutter,
Yeah.
but there is, and it's always mine. So, and what's interesting is that since my husband started working for Be Well Baby, it has been a complete shift in he's taking the kids to the doctor's appointments and
Hmm.
making the appointments
Hmm.
and buying the flights for the trips that I don't
Yeah.
even have to think about
Yeah.
anymore. And it is unbelievably reassuring to have someone else who feels like that's now their job.
Yeah. Yes.
And oh, oh my gosh, it's very helpful. And he's also so good at it, like arguably better than me.
Yeah. And that's the thing is we all have different strengths and skills, and what you just listed sounds like it just shifted, which means you were holding that even though it wasn't your strength because you were
Yeah.
assigned that contract. And
Mm-hmm.
like when things shifted, when he started working for you, right, things got to move around. And what I really want to hit here is it's not just that men are awful and terrible and privileged and how dare they, right? They are also burned out and tired and stressed out and stretched thin from systems and corporations that make them work too hard and have emails that are they're responding to, late at night between parenting and all the things. The society we have isn't supporting millennial parents. We know that. We got a bad gig here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never want the conversation to be like, women are such victims and men are such assholes. The reality is no one's doing well and women are holding more. That's just
Mm,
true, right? And so that is a constant negotiation in my marriage, right? Is like, I'm not going to take this. I'm doing all of this stuff. And that when motherhood came in, so much anticipating came in, right? Who's buying like when does my child get to wear sunscreen? I had to research that. I didn't know when I was allowed to do that. And either I get some wisdom from an older sister later after I buy the sunscreen, or I have to like Google everything, right? My husband isn't doing that. He's not thinking of those things, whether that's new shoe upgrades, swimsuits, whatever Christmas presents we're getting. And I think about that much earlier than he does. Birthday party planning,
mm,
all the stuff, right? And so what
mm-hmm.
happens is the negotiation in our home has switched from you take the routine things then, right? You take the dentist appointments, you take the doctor's appointments. Those are routine, great. I will take the things that take some creative energy or anticipating because I'm skilled at it because I've been trained for it, right? I'm not
Mm-hmm.
asking you to learn a whole new thing of life at 35, and you're going to learn some stuff in the process that I don't have to hold this, right? And
Yeah.
I will add one more piece to that, which is you're taking doctor's appointments off your plate and you're like, I don't have to think about that anymore. That's what
Mm-hmm.
it feels like, right? All of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
you go, I could breathe just a little bit more. What? Like,
Yeah.
what's that? Not to consider those things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
for me in my home, and it's just also the facts of like I work in the evening with clients, typically some during the day, but I have a lot of teenagers, so it's a night. So like I don't cook dinner, I don't do dishes, I don't do laundry ever. I don't touch those things pretty much ever anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the deal. He can take the routine things, I will take the hard mental things, and we genuinely feel like it's even split. It often doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel that way, and my clients feel very guilty about starting that shift. But once it's in flow, they hold it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
their strengths might be something different. It's very, very individual for each couple.
Yeah.
And the reality is to bring awareness to your life and what you're holding and in where you think it's too much.
Yeah. And you have to start small. Can I be honest with you? Sometimes I record these after my children go to sleep and they seem a little low energy. So I'm trying to beef this up with a little bit more energy, even though I have to be a little quiet because everyone's sleeping. So I need to tell you, if you're pregnant, I want you to come to my Birth Prep But Better workshop. Yes, I said it. It's birth prep, but it's better because I am teaching you what I wish people had known before they gave birth. I want you to come ready to ask questions that nobody else is answering for you. It will include everything you need about labor and delivery, but also the things that I wish you knew about feeding your baby and about caring for your baby in the first week, 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 months after that baby is born. So come ready to learn. Sponge brains, eat lots of calories so that you feel ready to intake this information. Okay, I'll see you there. But I really want to highlight here, we've been talking about women specifically, and presumably we've been talking about heteronormative
Yeah.
couples, and and man-woman dyad in terms of the home system.
Yeah.
But how does system keeping show up in families who don't follow those traditional gender roles, like same-sex couples or even like polyamorous couples?
It's really important to notice the difference between those, and that everyone comes from their own family system and their own background. And we're bringing that into shared spaces, right now, a home, right? If we're thinking of it in that way. And so some people are going to be privileged with like money, and other people aren't going to have the same privilege. Ethnicity and religion and all sorts of things, or race, are all compiling into how people are figuring out their blind spots within their home and their system, right? And so these invisible contracts and these conditionings still exist within those spaces. And if we can just generalize it to same-sex couples or polyamorous, things are just a little different, right? If you are both women, you have been conditioned typically similarly, or we have seen the same media similarly, right? And so if we can again generalize, not everyone who's listening is going to be like, I'm not that good of an anticipator, and are feeling a little off on that. And the reality is you are typically more than your other counterparts. Just true. And even if it's not your skill set, you know you're supposed to do it. And that is also a stressor. So to go back to just like female same-sex couples, there's going to be so much more same than different, which is creating such a symbiotic relationship of anticipating and empathy and seeing the other perspective and like being able to do that. And it really varies, again, just on the individuals and their lived experiences too.
I do feel like I am really able to anticipate the needs of the people around me in a very immediate way. It's more the clutter. That's my problem.
And that life got 3 kids is cluttering. I have 2 kids and I can't manage it at all. And I choose not to at this point, where I'm going, this isn't, because of the work I do, I go, this isn't where I'm willing to spend my time and my energy at night, is like organizing toys. Like I know I need to do it eventually, but like today's not that day. And I try to teach my nervous system that everything's safe, even though you're not moving through it.
So essentially what you're saying is that system keeping is similar. However, if we're talking about a same-sex couple who were both socialized as women and identify as women, that, and even if they don't identify as women, that potentially, because of the way that they were socialized and their background and their family system, that they are good at anticipating needs, and they're already sort of in this system keeping triangle, trying to system keep with their partner. And I imagine that that would be kind of nice.
Yeah, reportedly so. I can't speak to it personally, but what I have heard over and over again in the research that I've done and the clinical experience I've had is there are still blind spots, right? For instance, especially in this case, if you are mom carrying baby and this is your first kid together, you are learning stuff that your partner is not experiencing, and they'll have privilege based off of that. They don't understand all the ways that the body is changing or moving, and they might be wanting to read the book with you because they want to be a part of that journey in ways that men were not socialized to do, and we're not trained. They just show up and go, you should be lucky I'm here. You should be so thankful I am asking how you're doing. And like for me in my own marriage, if I was miserable or had heartburn, the automatic assumption was I did something wrong and she's mad at me and I dropped the ball somewhere, right? And you're like, dude, he couldn't sit in the space of, how are you doing? Are you okay? Or being curious. And women are naturally curious, and then we've been conditioned to that also, right? To care and go, what can I do for you and how can I take care of you? That we've been trained to do that part. We are just also naturally gravitated to deeper, in-depth relationships, right? And so in the research that has been spoken to about that, it just is easier. There is privilege in like the blind spots, right? But they are more willing to see you and wanting to hear your experience, where I have to literally train my husband to be curious about me. And that's a bummer, you know? You're laughing because it's a bummer, you know? It's nuts.
But I will say that there are some female partners out there who are not good at anticipating needs. And there are some
Yes.
male partners out there who are amazing at
Yes.
anticipating needs. And it really does come down to how you were socialized.
Yes.
Well, I can ask
Yeah.
this. Is there any research specifically speaking to the satisfaction in terms of couples and as they become parents?
Yeah, so I can't cite anyone. What I don't have any specific. What I do know is generally what is reported is that heterosexual couples struggle the most within marriage satisfaction over the decades and raising children. Same-sex male couples report more satisfaction within that. Same-sex female couples report the highest satisfaction in that. And for me, this all has to do with system keeping and the ways in which we can create similarities and easy flow. You just easy flow in communication and understanding and moving through that and adapting and anticipating. And if we look at anticipating and adapting, we can go from the lowest of these two opposite sex couples trying to understand and navigate their different lived experiences to narrowing that down further to being able to flow much easier within that, I think.
So if people are listening to this and thinking, gosh, I really feel this deeply
Uh-huh.
and now what? Like
Wow.
once they can see system keeping and they can see all of the systems that they have been keeping, what's a realistic first shift?
I think going to one, talking with yourself about it, not just going, this is overwhelming, it's everywhere, and just like putting your head in the sand and moving forward. It's a really hard pill to swallow to look at all the ways you're upholding stuff and not know how it's such an entangled web, how to like take one piece of yarn and try to pull it out. And so I think the first part is just noticing and bringing awareness to it and noticing your nervous system going, oh, I am running around. Like I can feel that, right? And so just paying attention to it. The next is playing around with what could shift. There is such a big fear of talking about this with partners. That I'm going to be a nag, I'm going to be a martyr. They're going to think I'm just being extra, even if they know they're accurate. And what I've had over the last 10 years happen is overwhelm from their counterparts going, how am I supposed to carry anymore? Which is valid, 1000% valid. And what matters is if you feel like you're suffering, and I really hit that with moms, if we've tipped over into suffering, whether that's your breastfeeding journey or that you are the one doing nights, if it turns into you are miserable, something has to shift. This is your one life and you get to be a part of it, not just carry it for everyone else. And so just because you were assigned the role mom does not mean all the rules obtain to you. So it's starting to notice what would feel nice, what would lighten your load, and then softly bringing it to your partner. And the fear is that they're going to reject you and you're going to notice they don't care about your experience. They're not hearing it that way. And so what really matters is that your humanity is being dismissed when you bring some of this up. And so once you get to that level of seriousness in a conversation, everything starts becoming very soft and your partner loves you and married you to be in life with you, and that things are going to start shifting within that. And if we show up with rage or that I'm holding on the labor and da 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 da, it's overwhelm for everyone, right? How are we supposed to untangle this? What do you want us to do? And so I think the first spot is noticing and talking to your nervous system that you're going to start tackling this and carrying it. And this is a really big ask, you know?
Yeah. I think one thing that's really just like coming up for me right now is thinking back to conversations that I had with my partner years ago. And, oh, if he could see himself now,
Oh,
you know,
oh,
he has grown so much. And it's just, we just have to talk and we have to say the things that feel like they're too much.
uh-huh,
And we have to ask for help,
uh-huh.
you know? And it doesn't all have to happen at once.
I want to say two things here that I think are really important. And so piggybacking off of that, Kevin and I, my husband and I, had a discussion this year. I can't remember the fight or I tell you all about it, but what ended up happening at the end of that was him feeling so grateful that I believe in him, that he is capable of understanding this concept and capable of taking on more, and that what could happen is that I could resent him and think he's shitty and that he doesn't care about me and I have to carry everything, and that our marriage goes into resentment, and that instead my voice and me bringing this conversation back over and over and over again, and this is a daily practice. This isn't a morning routine and it isn't a yoga class. It is something you will hit 1,000 mountains in. And that I'm willing to have those conversations with him and trust that he's capable of it, because what he said to me this year was like, how was I supposed to learn any of this? It's really overwhelming to try to learn women's conditioning over the course of a couple months or a couple years. And we've been together for 11. We've been doing this for a really long time. And just how beautifully grateful he was to like get a marriage that feels so good because I was willing to join in conflict with him. And
Yeah.
what I want to say, that's the piece I want to hit, is that women are so scared of being in conflict.
Totally.
And that, I'm not saying yell at your husband, but the tension brings connection and closeness and understanding of your lived experience. What we're looking
Yeah.
at is what clients say to me all the time is, I don't want to bum out the night. I will just like stay quiet. And when every time we do that, we're going to go on a weekend trip and I don't want him to be mad at me. And if that's happening, what's happening is you're getting punished for speaking up at all, and pay attention to that. But the bumming out the night, keeping the peace, like it's just too much to do, is creating a wedge of silence and not being known that is very hard to recover from once you create a valley between that. And so every time you bring in tension, it eventually leads to understanding and connection. It deepens connection every time. And so to train your nervous system of that is the other thing that makes this so much easier to walk into.
Yeah, I love that. I always think of it as a graph that like when you first start dating someone, the happiness and excitement goes up and up and up and up. And then something happens where you're like, ooh, I don't know if this is the right person for me. And then you overcome that and you have a conversation and it goes back up and up and up and up and up. And then there's another one. And there's hundreds of those little ones, big ones throughout your time together. But overall, the trajectory should be going up and up and up.
Yeah.
And if you can see that and hold that and use conflict as a tool for better connection and be able to come into any of those conversations with your partner with so much love, because you also married them because you love them. You're with them and you're having a baby with them because you love them so much, you know? And also, I have sat in rooms with women talking about this stuff, looking around and thinking, yeah, this is not the right relationship for me,
Yeah.
even though we have a baby together, and that's okay, you know? And I think there's something really beautiful about really making that intentional decision. It's actually something that I do with my partner all the time. We talk about divorce all the
Yeah.
time.
Oh, same.
Not because we think we're going to get a divorce,
Yeah.
but because it is really helpful to think about, do we still want to do this? And to have those conversations over and over again where we both decide, yes, we want each other and we want to do this together. It's so powerful and it makes your relationship stronger every single time.
And I love that so much, because what you're saying is marriage is an active choice to work together to create a life that feels good. And if you think of your marriage as being trapped in, it's already lost.
Yeah.
You know, and you are able to come out of that. There are ways to come out of that, but that takes so much work and vulnerability on each end. And really, marriage is a practice. Are we investing in each other? And I love that you guys are doing that.
My mother-in-law said when we got engaged, she said, I would have never married his father if I didn't think he'd be a reasonable person to be divorced from.
Yeah.
And that, I love that so much. It just is so realistic. You know, what you probably know the statistic of however many marriages end in divorce?
I actually don't anymore. Or the general
Let
number
me
is
look it up.
50, but I actually think it's going down lately.
That statistic was 40 to 43%
Yeah.
of first marriages eventually end in divorce, according to Forbes.
Okay. Yeah, I did know it was going down, which I think is really cool. And what I would love to say is that that in my 10 years and all the work I've done, no one has ever separated from this. They've gotten closer and women have gotten their needs met. And I think the conversation globally about this is typically men are so privileged. Men don't see us. And the question I have for everyone is, how much are you speaking up about your experience? How much are you opening up about it? How much are you softening into understanding they don't know your experience? And yeah, unfortunately, it's more labor on us to explain it, and your life will be better because of it. And that is like not an if, it is absolutely a guarantee. Because when you advocate for your own needs and your own agency, nothing can get worse because you're doing what feels good to you.
Stassi, this was amazing. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. And I know that so many people are going to get so much out of this. So I'm grateful.
Thank you so much for whoever's listening. I hope you got to the end without just collapsing. And thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. See you later.
Bye.
Stassi, thank you. Truly. I took so many notes during this conversation, and I know our listeners did too. What I keep coming back to is this idea that the tension brings connection, that speaking up, even when it's scary, even when you don't want to bum out the night, is actually how you are known, and it's how you make progress in a relationship. And you deserve to be known. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, a partner, a fellow new parent, someone who you think might need permission to put something down. And if you want more from Stassi, she is giving a masterclass on system keeping on May 28th. That's only 8 days away. You can sign up for that in our show notes. We will link to everything that you need. Audio and music production by the amazing Peter Gary, with Lillian Ewert managing all scheduling and operations of Be Well Baby, including this podcast. Thank you both for making this happen. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and I'd love for you to follow us on Instagram at BeWellBabyPDX or visit BeWellBaby.org to book a time to chat with us. And if this episode helped you, please send it to someone who's pregnant, postpartum, or someone in your life who wants to support you better. No one should have to do this alone. Welcome to Be Well Baby. You're in the right place.